When was the last time you spent a full hour, 1 full hour, working on your funeral home instead of inside of it? Doing all the things you do, wearing all the hats you wear on a daily basis. When was the last time you just stopped and spent an hour on your business? I did this yesterday. I had some PTO and I spent an entire afternoon thinking strategically about what's going on for me. It was amazing. It's amazing what happens. For most funeral homeowners I talk to, the honest answer is not recently, if ever, have I ever spent a full hour working on my business without any interruptions. And I get it. I really do. The funeral profession is uniquely demanding, and you don't choose when the phone rings. You can't choose when the phone rings. It's the toughest thing about your business. The thing that I think would be the most difficult for me is that phone can ring anytime, and you got to pick it up and go get to work. No matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, no matter what anybody says or does, a death call arrives and everything else stops. That's the nature of what you do. And I have tremendous respect for that. I really do. But I don't pander to it like everybody else does. I'm tired of that. Here's what I need you to hear. That reality, that constant reactive state is exactly why so many funeral homes are losing ground right now. Especially independent family-run businesses, they're losing ground because of this reality. Not because the owners, you aren't working hard. You're working very hard. You're exhausted. But exhausted and strategic are two very different things, as you know. So I've been talking about something I call the time integrity code. And the foundation is two simple questions. Point A, where are you right now? Where are you right now? Where do you want to go? It really is that simple. Most solutions in life to the problems you're experiencing, especially in your business, is simple. But most avoid the simple realities and stay stuck in the things they're in and doing because they're too busy to just stop and take that full hour to take a close look at what's going on. Simple, almost embarrassingly simple. But the gap between knowing those two things and actually building a path between them, that's where most funeral homeowners are stuck. Most of the funeral homeowners I'm speaking with, here's why. Most people think they have a time problem. They don't. They have a planning problem, which is really a space problem. And I've talked about that in other podcasts you can search out here on the Ash Flash. You can't add more hours to the day. That's obvious. But you absolutely can create more space inside the hours you have by delegating something simple, for example, or just blocking time in unique, creative, but simple ways. One of the things I have going right now is every morning I get up and the phrase is laptop opens first before phone. Why? Because it is on the laptop where I write, I create the scripts for these podcasts. All that stuff gets done in the morning, first thing when I'm fresh, my best mental hours of the day, my best creative mojo is flowing. That's when I need to do it. So I need no other distractions. And a good simple strategy is I wake up and I say to myself, laptop first before phone. And as long as I do that, I can get a pretty good piece of content created or started on that given day. And then this process continues because, as you know, it takes a lot of time and effort. And that's why most people stumble and never make it where they want to be when they're working on this kind of stuff for their business. And it is important. What does that mean practically? It means stopping the reactive cycle long enough to be intentional. Long enough to be intentional. It means treating your strategic priorities like appointments. I'm sure you've heard that before. Appointments you can't cancel. It means, I know it sounds a little bit harsh, learning to say no to the sixth thing on your list, even when it feels urgent, even when it probably is urgent. And that's where you'll push back and you'll say, but John, and I'll say, I understand. And maybe you can't push back on that thing, but maybe the next three things you can. But when you get into that mode all the time of accepting and doing and saying yes and not stopping for just one moment with a little more intention and asking yourself, is this something that I should do next? Is this something that I should be working on? Yes or no? Put some context around it. You've got to do that. Warren Buffett doesn't manage his time like most people. Maybe you've heard this story before. He's talked about keeping his schedule almost entirely clear so that he can think the way I did yesterday. Most of us laugh at that. We can't imagine it. But the principle matters. It matters a lot. Your most valuable activity requires protected space, and almost nothing in your environment will protect it for you. Really, almost nothing unless you've intentionally set up your environment to help protect that. You have to do it yourself. You've got to set up your environment in a way that allows you to block this time, Think about Warren. I mean, you might say, well, it's different. He's in a different business. And that's always the excuse everybody's always tempted to make is my business is different. My situation is different. I got to do this. I got to do that. I've got families. I've got family at home. I've got all these things. I just have to do it my way. But really, what you really have to do is carve out as much of that time and space as you can so that you can spend that time thinking strategically, because when you can really get that creative mojo going, it's unbelievable what you can accomplish. And you'll come up with 3 ideas that save you twice as much time next week if you'll just stop with a little bit of intention. Now, here's where I want you to connect this to something that I believe is the most important strategic conversation in independent funeral home ownership right now, pre-need. And more specifically, why the owners who get this right are going to be in a fundamentally different position 5 years from now than the ones who don't. Let me tell you what I see. And when I call on funeral homes across this country, this is what I see personally. And I call on a lot of them. I'm in the field constantly. I'm driving these roads, walking through these doors, sitting across from these owners and having these conversations. And what I see is this: most funeral homes have historically treated pre-need as a side hustle. In general, it's treated as a side hustle, if not an annoyance, if not, I don't have time for that, I've got to deal with the at-need. Commission income, something that happens when a counselor comes in, writes a few contracts, and everybody feels good. Maybe it generates some revenue, certainly generates some commission. Maybe it generates some revenue, maybe it doesn't, but it's not a priority, it's not a system, it's certainly not infrastructure. And for a long time, that was fine. The at-need business was enough. The community trusted you. Families came back generation after generation. That world is changing, and it's changing very, very fast. The consolidators aren't waiting. The SCIs, Park Lawn, all the big players in the industry have had robust pre-need programs for decades. In fact, you want to find some of the best agents you can find out there in the profession. They have formerly worked for SCI. They're not figuring this out. They figured it out a long time ago. They are executing, and they're doing it in your market right now. Right now as we speak, they're in your market and they're doing it. That's another one of the great benefits of having someone like myself or one of my colleagues walk through your door, is that we've got market intelligence that many others do not. I've got a colleague who's built some extensive maps and data that reveals things about you and your funeral home and your competition and how you can be effective over the coming years in ways that I haven't seen anywhere else. So I'm just encouraging you to pay attention. When you build a real pre-need program, systematic, consistent, running whether you're in the building or not, you are building something that has a tangible value on a balance sheet. You are creating future revenue that is contractually secured. You are deepening relationships with families before they need you at their worst moments. You are in the most literal case building the future of your funeral home. That is working on your business. That is exactly the kind of strategic activity that gets crowded when you're buried in the reactive day-to-day. And this is why so many owners are willing, increasingly willing, to let someone else handle this piece of their business for them. Not because they don't care about it, because they're smart enough to recognize 2 things. 1, they don't have the bandwidth to do it right. And 2, they're not salespeople. And that's all perfectly okay to an extent. That's a different podcast. They're funeral directors. You're a funeral director. You're an operator. You are a pillar in your community. Sales is a different skill set, and there's no shame in that. But I will tell you, the reality is that the best funeral home businesses I know are run by owners who embrace sales. Plain and simple. You may not like hearing that, but it's the truth. And you may not like the perspective that a lot of what you do is sales. And sales, when done right, is service. So the 2 go hand in hand. So I encourage you not to take it the wrong way and to open your mind to a whole new way of thinking about your business and your future. Because the mistake, and I see this, is treating that recognition as permission to ignore pre-need entirely. To just let it sit there as an occasional thing that generates occasional income. That, my friends, is leaving your future on the table. I want to be direct with you for just for a minute, real direct. Because I only want to work with owners who get this. Because the work I do requires a partner who understands exactly what we're building. If you think pre-need is about commission checks and you're satisfied with that framing, I'm probably not the right guy for you. And that's okay. But if you're sitting here thinking, I know there's something here I haven't fully built. I can feel it. I can sense it. I can see it. I know my pre-need program is more potential than performance. That is true more than it isn't true. I'll tell you that right now, which is one of the reasons I was so excited to get into this work, because I could see the opportunity just sitting there. The real trick is getting an owner to actually listen to how we go about changing that, or being willing to listen or engage in that process. I know my pre-need program is more potential than performance. I know the families I serve deserve better access to planning, and I'm not giving it to them the way I should be. If you're saying all of these things to yourself, we should talk. We should at least talk. I mean, there's no pressure to have a conversation, and I guarantee you'll walk away motivated and enlightened and more insightful about this business in general. The owners I love working with are the ones who see pre-need for what it is, a long-term investment in the business they've spent their lifetime building. They want to protect that legacy. They want a program that runs with consistency and produces real results. And they're willing to partner with someone who's built that infrastructure and can bring it to their market and be competitive in their market and rise above the competition in their market. That's what Command Pre-Need Ops is. That's what I do. So how does all of this connect back to time integrity? Here's how. Every owner I've described, the one who's too busy, the one who's running on fumes, the one who hasn't had an hour to think strategically in months, that owner doesn't have a pre-need problem. They have a time problem, which is a planning problem, which is a space problem. So we've got to solve that first. And the solution isn't to grind harder. You'll hear this from time to time, especially in death care. The grind, you just got to keep grinding. You'll hear it everywhere. You just got to keep grinding and working harder and putting in more time and more effort. And that's all true to a point. But when you're grinding for the sake of grinding, it's no longer working for you. The solution is to step back, get honest about point A, where you are right now, and point B, where you want to go, and start making decisions about where your time and energy actually go. Yesterday afternoon, it's amazing when you do this. You stop, you take a look, you get clarity, and you see things that you can't see when you're busy. And all of a sudden, you see things that you're doing, and you say to yourself, what in the heck, John, are you doing that for? Get back to work, get focused on the right things. The owners who carve out the space to think about this, to act on it, to build it, those are the ones who are going to look back in 5 years. That's about how much time I think you have at the most, and be grateful that you did. The ones who stay stuck in reactive mode, I genuinely worry about them. I worry about you. Not because you're bad at your job, but because most of you are exceptional at your job, but because the market isn't going to wait around. AI is not going to wait around. The change that's coming is not going to wait around. You got to get to work on it. All right. That's what I've got for you today. If this hit home for you, if you're sitting there thinking about your pre-need program and what it could be versus what it is right now, go to theashflash.com, subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to the Ash Flash on Substack. That's where I go deep on this stuff every single week. Real talk, field observations, no fluff, market intelligence, a level of market intelligence you're not going to find anywhere else. I just finished a conversation with a colleague and we got into all of that, just how little owners often really know and understand about what's going on with their pre-need programs can make a real difference for your next 5 years. And if you want to have a real conversation about what a partnership with myself and Golden Considerations looks like, you know how to find me. I'm Johnny Renaissance. Go build something. Take care, everybody.